Is this thing on?
Are you ready, Matt?
You're listening to Box Office Bingers
with Matt Diaz and Ernesto Santos.
Good evening, folks. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you.
We know each other. He's a friend from work.
Box Office Bingers.
And the only way that I know how to do it is to find you a bloody good dump.
He's my friend. I don't have friends. I got family.
I can do this all day.
You know, if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
All right, guys, we are back for a very special episode of Box Office Bingers. Matt, kick it off. Tell the people what we're reviewing and what special guests we have this week.
We have two special guests actually this week. First time to the podcast, we have Adam Hooper and Grayson Holland. Welcome both to the show. I know this is a long time coming in. And also, to be honest, I mean, just putting full disclosure out there, I really just invited Adam onto the show. And I was like, Adam, you want to come on for Alien Romulus? He's like, absolutely. And then like a few weeks later, Adam was like, you know what would be even better than just me on the show? Me and Grayson on the show. So welcome both. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good. Thank you all for having us. This is fun.
Oh, pleasure. We're excited to have you guys. I'm excited to dive into the Alien franchise. Like, I felt like I didn't really appreciate it before going to see Romulus. Going to see Romulus like forced me to go back and watch the original and kind of look at some of the older ones. So I definitely have a deeper appreciation for the Alien franchise. But I'm really excited to talk to you guys to kind of hear about your wealth of knowledge into like horror and Alien Romulus and all that. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, definitely.
And before that we have, like I said, Alien Romulus, which is a movie that's kind of been long, not in the works, but it's the Alien franchise has been an interesting one these last couple of years. And director and writer Fede Alvarez said that he's more or less bringing this back to form and is going to pay homage to a lot of the other Alien movies in the past. It's also starring Kaylee Spaney, David Johnson, Archie Renix, Isabella Merced. Renault. You know what? We practiced this.
Don't call yourself out, Matt.
No, but I'm going to because it's important. Okay. we went down videos. We were going to pronounce these right, and then as soon as I'm into it, he's like, "Nope." Archie Renault, thank you. Isabella Merced, Spike Fern, and Aileen Wu.
Aileen Wu. You almost got it. Right? See, you almost got it. Almost perfect stretch. I'm gonna script the writer's name. Rodo Sayagueres. You see, thank you. See, I just knew it. Anyone who's been listening to the show already knows. Fede Alvarez also has written and directed Evil Dead, Don't Breathe, and The Girl in the Spider's Web. Ernesto, you've been talking about Don't Breathe. You've been preaching about Don't Breathe for years. Yeah. And it's a shame that you still haven't seen the movie. No, it's not available to stream anywhere. I have to physically buy this movie to go watch it. No, it's in my Vudu account, and you have access to it. Well, okay. You have no excuse. You're right. I don't. Wasn't ready for that one.
He's on to you.
Yeah, he is. I'm sure he goes on his Vudu account. He's like, another day he didn't watch it.
Like you guys have a book club thing going on, but for movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, now so here's
like I provided the source material.
Yeah. You failed.
Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pause the show right now. Ernesto, you go watch the movie. We're gonna reconvene the next hour and a half. All right, thank you.
No, we're gonna watch him watch.
Yeah, exactly.
Forget all of our plans for this episode. It's just gonna be us watching Ernesto watching Don't Breathe for the next 90 minutes.
Pure entertainment.
Yeah, exactly.
Pure entertainment. We're gonna stay silent, and then we're just gonna hear his reactions, and that's it. Adam,
Shia LaBeouf did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Adam, you've seen Don't Breathe, right?
Yeah. Stephen Lang.
Stephen Lang.
Fantastic.
If he wasn't a villain in Avatar, he sure is kind of in Don't Breathe. I don't want to spoil anything, but for those who haven't seen Don't Breathe, that's a really good precursor to what this director can do with film, as well as
kind of a lot of the stuff that he brought into that movie is what he was able to bring into Alien Romulus. But before we dive into the movie, I kind of want to bring in the reason why the both of you are on this episode specifically. Originally, I had asked Adam to come on because of his love for horror. So before we even get started, why horror? And you also have me go down a lot of interesting paths. You make me watch a lot of interesting horror movies that I don't like, but yet that you have a fascination for. Is like, you know, it would be great for Matt to watch this one. Go ahead, see it. But yeah, what's the fascination for horror for you?
There's just something about horror, you know, that when it comes to the practical effects of it all from the early horror films, where like you get to witness something happen and it has a profound effect on you because you feel it, you see it. And nowadays with CGI, I feel like you kind of can disassociate a lot more from that because when you're caught in the moment, kind of like, you know, just like us, like we're not really in space, but you know, we're giving you the illusion of space. Yeah. So I feel like with practical effects, there's just a lot more heart to it, and with those older horror films like Videodrome and you know the original Evil Dead, that's what lends a lot to that horror and that suspense. And I feel like Fede Alvarez did a really good job, especially in this film, bringing that kind of suspense and horror back to the alien itself. Now we're being hunted. We don't know where it is. We have no idea where it is, but we know it's coming and we know what it is. Just like in the first Alien movie. After that thing popped out, we knew it was coming. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I know we've had many conversations because we've also discussed, like, you are willing to give horror more chances, I believe, than any other genre. Like, there are certain movies that I'm like, for me, horror is like, oh, they've been there, done that. But you're like, you know what? They have the opportunity, and you've actually explained this more than any genre, to be a little bit different. Because when you go into a comedy, when you go into an action, you know kind of what you're going to expect. But with horror, and what I've learned throughout the years myself, is that no matter what, people are going to try different things and kind of go out there, but at least they're giving you something different. As other genres, you kind of are getting the same thing over and over again, just in different layers.
Yeah, I'd say it's right on the money, actually. Yeah.
That's actually really interesting, and like, I think that's what I really appreciated about the original Alien movie, because it was more about the suspense of finding the monster. And I mean, most of the kills, you don't really get like a close-up of exactly how they're killed, like them being stabbed, them being ripped apart. Like, a lot of it is implied, as opposed to most of the CGI fest horror movies now, where it's more of the spectacle of that person being ripped apart or how they're being killed.
Yeah, and I think to your point, Romulus did a good job of playing with that suspense in a way that, again, giving us something different that we haven't seen in even other Alien films that we will sure be getting into momentarily. But again, now moving over to Grayson, the reason why you're on this show, and again, it was kind of like, you know what? You guys are talking about aliens? I want to be on here. That's pretty much how that happened.
Pretty much.
But, yeah, which I also learned that you are a massive Alien fan, so much so that you saw the movie twice. You saw the movie in 40X
I did.
with Ray, and then we all went as a group together and we saw it in IMAX. So you've given them double the price of your admission.
You sure have.
and you don't go to the movies that often. So like you're like, I'm gonna go. I love this movie so much, I'm gonna go see it again. And so much so that you bought a tiki mug that was presented by the movie theater. Well, not a tiki mug, but it was some sort of glass.
It's a little ceramic tiki mug.
There you go. But why the Alien franchise? What was fascinating to you when you first saw at least the first movie, and then the sequels that came after?
It's hard. I don't remember because the first time I ever saw Alien, I think the first time I ever learned about the movie was, I think they were playing it on cable network. I don't remember which one it was, but I was in 5th or 6th grade. And I remember seeing the trailer for it, and I thought that, they show little snippets of the film, and you maybe see a little clip of the alien here or there. I was like, whoa, that looks like cool, but also it scared me as a child. And I remember asking my parents, like, what movie is that? And they're like, oh, it's Alien. And was kind of like freaked out by it at first. Like, I definitely don't want to see that. Like, it would probably freak me out. And then I finally like worked up the courage one night, and we went. Blockbuster was still around in our town at the time. Got the good old DVD of it, and I sat there and watched it. I remember being terrified of it, absolutely terrified the first time. I didn't make it past the first like maybe 25, 30 minutes, and I was like, this is too much, because I'm not inherently a horror person. But after that, I waited another 2 days while we still had the rental, and I was like, I gotta finish it. And I did actually get through the rest of the movie, and it ended up being one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. Like, it was just so captivating to me, just the way that the alien, like we've been talking about how you know what it is, like Adam said, you know what it is, you're just waiting on it to get there. I loved that. To me, was a really cool feeling. And I think what really even spoke to me from a younger age is the environments, like the ship design of the Nostromo and everything. It's that interesting kind of retro, now it's really retro, but that old vision of future sci-fi tech that I really like, that the dingy hallways, the plush padding, all that kind of stuff. I really like the environments that Alien presented as well. And all the costuming was great in the first film. I just liked the whole world that they built so much that I ended up then really loving the rest of the franchise. Most of the rest of the franchise.
Yeah, like we said, this franchise has gotten down a very interesting path, and I can't think of any other franchise that has gone this way. Like, you go from a horror movie, and then basically Aliens is a action movie, and then Alien 3 is more of, I don't even know what to describe that, to be honest with you, and then Alien 4 goes deeper into the rabbit hole, and what am I watching right now? And then you go into like the ones that follow after was Alien versus Predator 1 and 2, and you're like, this is now goofy. Like, what has happened to the horror of Alien? And then Ridley Scott picked it back up, and then he gave us Prometheus and Alien Covenant, which was like, now here's everything you wanted in the Alien franchise. Lore. Who wants more deep sci-fi backstory about these engineers? And let's take our time by over-explaining these scientific and mythological and deep sci-fi nerd stuff. And you're like, yeah, but where's the alien in this? Where is he? Is he coming up? No. Okay. All right. Yeah. All right,
like we explained, the horror of it all is it's coming, you just don't know when.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay?
If not at all. It's coming eventually. But yeah, I am curious though. What do you think of Aliens though? Like, going from a horror movie that was Alien, and then kind of James Cameron picking up the reins. He like, what this movie needs? Action.
Yeah.
And lots of it.
Lots of it. And more, and actually just more aliens. I find it interesting, at least comparing the first Alien to the second one, and also watching them very recently, like a couple days ago in preparation for Romulus. The big thing that I noticed was, like, the first Alien movie, you had one alien that was like really, really hard to kill, and so much so that in Romulus we found out that it didn't even really die in. It was still alive when Ripley kicked it out into space. So like, these things are impossible to kill. And then we get to Aliens, and it's like paper, man. You take the gun, it's spreading, and they're just boom and boom. And you're like, wait a minute, this one took a whole movie to kill. And now they're just exploding off of just like a little, like you touch them and they explode. I just find that's just an interesting contrast. I don't know if, like, even the fans of the time, that obviously both Alien and Aliens are well loved within the franchise as well as their own separate movies, but they're so different, yet they complement each other in a weird way. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like that there's some differences that you can't look past between the two movies?
I mean, what do you think, Adam?
I think the second movie did take a lot of credibility on Alien, but it was a big pivot from what you expected, because like you get Sigourney Weaver kind of taking over the role of becoming our hero and kind of taking down the responsibility of killing the alien and trying to hunt it, and then we go like a completely different way, and now all of a sudden Sigourney Weaver's John Wick, and everybody's just like popping around corners, and it just it's a huge pivot from like that what you said, that kind of horror aspect that they gave you, because in shooting the newest film, he used a lot of those tighter shots and a lot of tighter corridors and things like that. And that brought back that kind of claustrophobia you felt from the first film, because in the first film, it was shot differently than the widescreen aspect ratio we have now. And because of that, they were able to create a tighter kind of claustrophobic effect that kind of made you afraid of what was around the next corner. So I was glad to see a lot of that come to form in the newest film.
Grayson, what about you?
Yeah, it's interesting because like we've said, it's such a departure from what the first film was. The first film is truly like a horror film to me, and all of a sudden it's boom, James Cameron action time. Yeah. It's no longer the one alien. You now, like, the enemy is now not just a single entity. It's now the horde of aliens, and then at the end it's the queen. It is a very different feeling, much more. It feels faster. I rewatched it recently, and I remember the movie feeling long, and then after watching Alien, the first Alien, and then immediately going into the second, it just keeps, like, Aliens kind of keeps moving. At least when I watched it recently, I was like, it definitely keeps up that pacing. And so it's weird to me how they do kind of, like you said, they complement each other in a way. I don't know how it works. Like, I don't know why it works, but for some reason they do seem to, like, I don't have any qualms about watching one and then going immediately into the other. Yeah. They somehow work well together, even though they are completely different genres. Like, it is very much a quintessential, like, 80s action movie. And
what's interesting is that you do have like to your point, rewatching the first two movies, Alien for me felt slower than I remember, but yet Aliens, to your point, rewatching it felt a lot faster than what I remember. Like, I think the buildup was at a steady pace, and also like we were also we found out that Sigourney Weaver Ripley was in hyper cryo sleep for like 57 years. So we're adjusting to this new world-ish, I guess, as well as she is, because we never got introduced to the Weyland-Yutani like factory of it all. And we got a little piece of it in Aliens, whereas the first movie was just confined with the spaceship, the Nostromo. So like, I think in a way the build-up, to your point, felt very 80s action. It also felt like very Terminator 2. I don't remember which movie came first because it was around the same time. But I feel like at that point between Terminator and Aliens, at that time of James Cameron's career, he can do no wrong. I think. Like, and then literally a couple years later, he does Titanic, which is a departure from anything he's done. Completely. But at the time, he was like the 80s sci-fi action king, and I think also in just some points, like, in a way, like when you think about it, like an 80s movie, like, people actually like want to be absorbed within the action, and this movie provided that. So maybe everything they wanted in the first Alien movie was like, but like there was like one, but what if we got like a whole bunch? And then Cameron's like, okay, let's try that. And then,
let's do it.
And I think people fell in love with just the alien concept in general with the first movie, that they just wanted to, like, we'll just, you know what the people want? More. We want more.
We want flamethrowers. That's what we want, and that's what we got in two.
And I think narratively they got us there without you being like, well, that's kind of weird, because just the whole setup, like, oh, well, we set up this colony, we already set up this colony there. It's like, oh, well, what would happen if all the aliens just took over the colony there? Then, that's when we got aliens. So I think that's what that separation between the first and second one is. You can't get that close claustrophobic feeling with if you're being overrun by aliens. It's gonna feel like, you know,
Yeah.
all right, 5 minutes, movie's over. There's 10 aliens and there's 5 of us. What are we gonna do? Like,
Yeah. It's kind of Starship Troopers.
exactly. Yes, exactly that. Yeah.
And weirdly enough, this movie, you know, because I saw Avatar before I saw Aliens.
Yes.
Because I saw Alien and Aliens more when an adult, but I saw Avatar when I was more of a kid. And Aliens, now I realize that Alien is basically Avatar's the evolution of Aliens, and because it's like the military aspect of it, like the hoorah nature of it all, was embedded in Aliens. Even the whole suit that Ripley's in at the end of the movie, it's exactly what's in Avatar.
Yeah.
So like at this whole time, I'm thinking like, oh my God, Avatar ripped off Aliens, but it's like, no, wait, hold on, no, James Cameron just repeated the same thing he did in this movie, and that movie made them $2 billion.
If it ain't broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. He just hit it with a whole bunch of visual effects and it was like blinded by everybody, which is crazy. But yeah, anyway, let's get into it. Let's dive into our spoiler review of Alien and Romulus. And Grayson, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Adam. Kind of give your opening thoughts, your statements of like your thoughts on Alien and Romulus.
I did. Overall, I think the one thing that stuck out to me the most, especially because right before this, I had not seen Covenant. Watched that, and it had an odd feeling to me. It definitely felt more akin to Prometheus, and it of course is kind of the sequel to that. But what I liked about this movie is from the opening, it felt to me immediately, yep, this is Alien. This feels like classic, like original Alien. Just in, you know, the film, the shots were beautiful, and I'm trying to remember the opening shot right now. It just opens on the. Yes, it opens. They're going to find. Yeah, they're going to find the alien in the rock. That whole sequence was gorgeous. I loved I loved when they're cutting the rock open. The shot with that laser cutter was fantastic. Very intense, and that choir at the opening when they're like building up when you finally see the reveal of the rock underneath. That was masterfully done. I loved that, and it immediately set the tone for me. I was like, okay, this is going to be good. I could, like, at least to me, it felt I knew I was in for it when that happened, and that's what I really appreciated. And then throughout the rest of the film, I just, like I say, it just kept that kind of feeling of it had that same intensity of the first one, that closeness that the first one does. But then you did end up with some more action type scenes here and there, like the second one that I also really appreciated. To me, it was just a nice all-rounder. Like it satisfied what I wanted out of it.
Adam, what about you?
Honestly, like he was saying, that opening shot was beautiful, and it kind of when it opens up and we're just like in the depths of space, right? And it's just completely silent because it's silent in space. It kind of gives you that feeling like, okay, yeah, we're alone out here. We're separated from, you know, what we knew, because we saw what, you know, Rain knew at the beginning. You know, a planet not worth much, but there was ground under her feet at least. And then, you know, taking this job out of the need to, you know, make money and make a better life for herself. It's just that opening shot and that opening sequence, no sound, lets you know that we're truly alone and that we're in for something out there. And I liked how, as the ship panned, we get the flashing console, just like we did in the first film. You get that nice warm light from the console going off, and we're waking up, and it just felt like the first film again. And it really felt like, you know, we were in for it. And I really appreciated that a lot. And as we kept going, like if you watched a lot of the other films, like you start seeing more and more of the things that you know, and things that you're helping you tie this big story together. And as somebody who's seen a lot of the films, it just like that feeling, being able to point at something and go, oh, I know what that is, and like put that story together. That was really fun for me to do the whole time through as I watched it. And even some of the surprises, you know, with the creature and all that, just like we got from Alien 3, you know?
Yeah. We're gonna
Look,
talk about
Sigourney's
the
baby was much prettier. Let's be real, much prettier.
Hot take. Ripley's baby in Alien 3 was much more prettier than the offspring in this movie. That's just me. A hot take.
Yeah. But yeah, the nostalgia factor was there. Yeah.
Okay. Ernesto, what about you?
I think
going from a different perspective, because you are kind of very new to this franchise.
Yeah, so I didn't watch anything else first because I've been on this new kick where like anything that's franchise wise that's coming out in the theaters, I don't want to watch anything else first. I want to watch this, whatever this iteration is, and have that give me the appreciation to want to go watch the other stuff. And I felt like that this movie did this because I watched it and I go, damn, now I really want to watch Alien and watch Aliens and but that's what these franchise movies should do. When I see the trailer, it's like, oh well, I guess I got homework of like 17,000 other movies I got to watch before I go watch this one. I mean, because we live in a world where everything is a remake of something, it's a continuation of something else. So they should be writing these films as an entry point. Like this should be an entry point into the Alien franchise, and I felt like this movie successfully did that because it didn't really it wasn't dwelling on a bunch of backstory from a bunch of other things. It's like here's these people, here's that alien. Like you don't even really need to know anything about the Alien franchise, and you can fully understand this movie from start to finish, which is something that I really appreciated because some franchise movies just they're not able to do that. So as far as a new person coming into the franchise, I thought it was absolutely. I mean, it was fantastic. A lot of the build that they had. I mean, all the back and forth on the ship was great. One of my favorite scenes is like just akin to where the poster is when that face hugger grabs onto one of the members, and it's the one from the trailer, and she puts the scanner on her body, and you see that thing burst out of her chest. I mean, compared to where you see the chest bursters in Alien and Aliens, I mean, what an upgrade. What a way to use the technology we have now, the practical effects that we have now, and just to see how far the Alien franchise has come, and that it's still able to provide the same level of entertainment while still using all the technology that we have now, but also still, to your point, still kind of using that suspense, like where is that thing, where is the thing, where's the monster, like that suspense of trying to get out and not getting hit by this thing. And I felt like this movie was able to do that. I loved it. I mean, and Grayson, you brought up about the style of the first one. I love how they recreated that in Romulus, because when I was watching it, I go, damn, this feels like 80s what the 80s thought the future would be like. That was my exact thought. And when I watched the original one, I go, how great is it that they were able to take the look of this movie from 1979 and recreate it and bring it back to life now, but not what we think the future is like, because everything now is AI, like no screens, just a digital screen popping up, whereas it's like that very bubble format like you guys have on your background, and like buttons and shit everywhere that look like they do stuff but really don't do anything. Like literally in the beginning, in the original Alien, when they go and talk to Mother in like the AI room, it's like a room just full of lights and a computer.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I loved it, and I actually felt like they blended the feel of the first two movies, because we do get the suspense, but we do still kind of get some of that James Cameron action feel, because like, you think of like the elevator shaft scene, or where they're all floating with the zero gravity and she's trying to avoid all the acid blood, like. And it's just, they're all coming at her. And very much, if you shoot them, there's like 10 of them, you shoot them, they just burst like paper, like Matt was saying. Yeah. But overall, I to be honest, I really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. And I think it's a great addition as a summer blockbuster. I think this film opened at a great time for the box office, and coming out right after Deadpool Wolverine, to not kind of ride on that wave, but it still land a spot. I am curious, Grayson, about your 40X experience watching this movie.
That was an experience. No, actually, the movie in 40X was really fun. They did it really well. It was more subtle. It was funny though. We talked with Matt and Adam about this, but when we first got in the 40X theater, we've never done one before. We were open to the idea. We were like, this would be a really fun movie to see it in. Right before, like 10 minutes before the movie actually started, all of the trailers for, all the big hit movies, blockbusters are coming out. And all of a sudden, the entire like row of chairs just starts going crazy, and I'm getting thrown out like of my seat. It starts spraying water, it's blowing me everywhere. And I looked at Ray at the same time. We were like, we just made the worst decision of our lives. And then it finally starts. The movie starts, and everything's quiet in that opening sequence. And then the chairs just very slowly kind of wobble you around, give you a very weightless feeling. It was done really well. It didn't feel cheap. So it was definitely I wouldn't say it necessarily heightened the experience, at least not across the whole film, because there are some moments where it would be cool. You'd get a huge jolt when, there was a big impact or something like that. But at the same time, I would then kind of be rocked out, and it does kind of pull you out a little bit in some ways, because okay, well now I have to readjust in my chair, or like, man, the wind, the fans that are doing the wind effect, it's cool, but now it's louder than like some of the ambience in the movie. So it's definitely a fun. I would say it's a good way to see it a second time if you wanted to.
Okay. Has Matt told you about his experience seeing Twisters in 40X?
A little bit, yeah. He said,
it
was a wild
to
ride.
say the least.
And that's the short version. That's the short version. If you want to hear my full version, go listen to our Twisters episode with Kellyanne that we had a few weeks back. But yeah, the episode 228. To your point now, Grayson, I'll ask you this as well. You might have a different experience, mainly because you saw this movie twice. So the first time you saw it was in 40X. The second time you saw it in IMAX, in the really big screen. It might be completely. And because going into IMAX, you're watching it a second time. But did you have a preference on which version you preferred, at least with this particular movie?
With this film, it's going to kind of be the same answer, I'd say, because I know I was telling my parents this too. They haven't seen it yet, and they also have loved Alien Forever. I was like, y'all have to go see it. But I told them, I was like, I would go see it in IMAX first. Like that felt like I was really watching the movie. Like it kind of sunk back into the seat, and really was just being able to take it all in. The picture's huge, of course, and then at least in the theater that we went to, the audio system is just superb in the IMAX, and so that really makes the quiet really quiet, and it makes the loud very loud. There's a huge dynamic range there, and so I think that honestly, at the end of the day, had more impact for me than the 40X did. The 40X is just a nice, fun, like, gimmick. When else are you going to be watching an alien movie and something, hits you in the back when the chest burster's popping out? Like, it's definitely a gimmick. But yeah, I think to me, I enjoyed the IMAX a little more because it was less distracting overall.
I feel that.
Yeah, Adam, what about you? I know that we all three of us saw the movie together. Do you feel like the IMAX experience enhanced it for you? Because I know that you're really big into picture quality, sound quality. IMAX claims that they bring that to the theater. Do you feel like they did that pretty well for this film?
Yeah, I really do. Like Grayson was saying, the quiets were very, very quiet. The loud stuff was very impactful. I mean, when Romulus and Remus took a toll into that asteroid belt, you felt it in IMAX. And I think those moments, having that impact, really help bring the film to life.
Yeah, especially, I feel like with even IMAX and 40X, there's a time and place to see certain movies. I think obviously I went to go see Twisters in 40X. I feel like that was a good time to see Twisters in a setting like that. That wasn't going to be like, I think anything to enhance the experience. It's not like when we went to go see, I'm trying to think of other movies we saw this year, Ernesto, Trap, the episode we just reviewed last week. I don't think that movie warranted me to pay a premium to experience it in a premium format.
I would actually have to disagree with you because
and
I would say that if you were to see that movie in Dolby or IMAX, you would appreciate it just for it to get that like concert feel. It's like people want to see, Taylor Swift in concert at the theaters.
In the theater. Okay, let me rephrase that. The bike riders. How about
Okay,
that?
obviously that's not like obviously, yeah, okay. Better example.
There you go. All right. Just making sure. I know that we reviewed earlier this year, a few months ago. But yeah, I wouldn't like sought out to. You know what? The bike. I want to feel to be on that bicycle. Like on that.
They're motorcycles, not bicycles, man.
I want that 40X experience.
Ching 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 ching.
Look, you put ET in 40X, I'm in.
I want to fly with everyone in that scene. That's the only reason why. But yeah, that's not a movie I would think that I want to see in 40X. I don't think that movie was even offered in 40X. But anyway, like there are certain movies that you feel like that you got to see, have a certain experience for. And I feel like, especially with Alien, I know the last time I saw an Alien movie was Alien Covenant in theaters, and I saw it in Dolby. And Dolby is known for its sound. Ernesto can
that's
attest
my favorite.
to.
I actually went. The day I was gonna see this movie, just because I had to go pick up my kids afterwards, I couldn't see this movie in Dolby, and I wish I could have seen this movie in Dolby, because I felt like I would have a better appreciation for it, just because I would have been able to enjoy it in the format that I love so much.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the scenes that really like showcased at least the sound for me was in the midst of the silence, but when they had to like be invisible with the face huggers.
Oh yeah.
And they went into that room and they had to first of all, that scene was just
great
intense.
Scene.
Let's just put
Fantastic
it out there.
scene.
I think it's very reminiscent to the movie you didn't see, Ernesto, called Don't Breathe, where they.
Guess I'm watching it tonight.
Where they
have you heard about that?
Yeah. Maybe I might have brought it up once or twice.
Well, what's the guy's name again?
Stephen Lang.
Thank you, Stephen Lang. Yeah, he plays a blind man.
Mm-hmm.
So the people are like kind of breaking into his house, and for reasons I'm not going to explain, but they broke into his house, and so they're trying to sneak around the house, and that scene was very similar to the kind of intensity that that face hugger scene had, where like you had to walk in very quietly, very calm, to make you can't like be, what was it? You can't like, your body temperature can't reach any higher than what the room is. Otherwise, the face huggers can read that and then instantly attack you. And so I thought that was a scene that I didn't think was shown in any other Alien movie prior. And I think it also gave us a little bit insight about the face hugger, because I didn't know that they responded to heat signatures and sound. But I think this movie maybe even took some liberties into maybe making that up to make it, not really going against what the other movies did. They're just giving us more backstory on what they believe these face huggers can do. And I thought that just provided a very intense scene as they're slowly walking through this room. And more so even in IMAX, we get to hear those little clicking sounds that they were making. And I think watching in IMAX really elevated that you're also in the room, maybe thinking there's a face hugger right next to you. You just don't know. They just I thought the sound did a really good job of like making it surrounding. Nope. Making you feel like you're surrounded in there. But I do want to kind of go over a few other scenes. Ernesto, you said, did you have the breakdown, or do you want me to go over it?
I have it. We can go over it however you want to do it.
Okay. Well, I guess first, just to start off by saying that obviously Alien Romulus takes place between Alien 1 and 2, roughly 20 years after the first Alien, about 37 years before Aliens. And then the movie kind of explained that Romulus was a half of a spacecraft. That Romulus is also Remus.
Remus, yeah.
Remus being the other half, and those are the two founders of what built Rome, apparently.
Yes.
So I don't know what the bigger tie-in is at the end of the day, but that's just where it came from, I guess. I'm not sure if they're calling the spacecraft Rome in and of itself. We also didn't really learn much about this spacecraft, so I'm not sure. Unless you can think of anything else, I can't really think of the significance of Romulus in the title. Rather than just being on, that's where most of the action took place, on that side of the ship. Ernesto, I'm not sure if you or anybody else knows any other significance that came with that
Well,
title.
because if they built Rome, this is part of them building the empire, the facehuggers of them being established on that colony, that kind of in between time between Alien 1 and 2. I mean, that's my guess. This is what helps build it. I mean, this is an event that I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it. because they're built. Because this is that in between time. Because Aliens 2, they established that in between that time they built a colony on there, on that LV 426, whatever the colony's called. So this is a part of that. So this is part of what built that. That's where my take is.
Okay. Do you have any takes on it, or you just have any one of you have or no clue on the Romulus title?
I meant to actually look it up because I was like, when we were watching the movie both times, I was like, that has got to have some kind of significance. And then you know what? I never did. But I feel like there's something with that story of Romulus and Remus that they're probably tying into somewhere, and I just don't know it well enough to like make the connection.
Yeah, maybe on the third or fourth passing of the movie, we'll give it more appreciation and be like, oh, okay, that's what he was going for.
That's what it was. Duh.
Yeah.
Like,
duh.
Romulus and Remus.
That's it. That's what it is. But yeah, I think amongst a whole bunch of other things, this movie does a really good job of even paying homage to not even the Romulus bit, but just the Alien franchise in general. Like when you think about all the scenes, like Adam, you're talking about the nostalgia factor of everything. There are so many references in this movie that in some cases it could be seen as cheesy. But as Ernesto was explaining to it, I feel like Fede Alvarez did a really good job of treating this franchise with care and kind of paying attention to the details on making those references not as cheesy as maybe other films have done in the past when they want to make references to old movies or the older movies in their franchises. So when even watching this movie, there was like a lot of beats that I was like, oh, this is like Alien. Oh, this is like Aliens. Like, oh, that's definitely Alien 3. That Offspring is nothing I've seen from Alien 1 or 2. So I think even in its weirdest moments, he was able to kind of take the franchise as a whole and was like, you know what, we're going to pay homage to something, a little bit of everything, to either purposely try to tie some of those together or just to have fun with the idea that we are taking certain elements back into play, even certain lines that were reused with certain characters that like even Andy toward the like almost the end of the movie where he was like, get away from her, you bitch. Like he gave it a pause in that scene. But yeah, so either I think overall he did a really good job of paying homage to a lot of those scenes. What do you think about, aside from the opening scene, the world that we were kind of presented? We see Rain and Andy giving us a glimpse into this like industrial planet that seems like there was no escape from. She claimed that she got her hours into, I guess, get passage out of the planet, and then all of a sudden this woman was like, hey, you're not allowed. Grayson, as an Alien fan, do you think they did a really good job further building upon the world and kind of just giving us a more scope of what this world is, especially with Alien Yutani and all that stuff that kind of comes into it before we get back into like the classic Alien stuff that we know from the other films?
Yeah, I think that to me was fun to see it like an actual Wei-Yu colony, like that mining colony. That was fun to see in a film because we haven't really gotten that before, at least in that very corporate sense of this is your job, this is your house, this is where you live, work, and probably die here. Like that, I liked that view of Weyland Yutani. It was fun to see. I think they did a really incredible job with the environment there. Like that planet looked gorgeous, and it had that really seedy kind of underbelly. Like all the little market that they're walking through reminded me of the, not in color palette, but very similar to just the hustle and bustle of the market in Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. Like it was very that kind of it felt dystopian. Which was it just really dingy, dirty, grimy, and I liked that because it's that very much like I think in Prometheus and even in Covenant, like all the Wei-Yu stuff's really pretty, looks nice, shiny, and then down here on the colony, like it's just awful, like terrible working conditions. The people are obviously in shambles. They can't even, they're working for these hours to be able to get away from this and go travel off. And then they're just, nope, you didn't make your hours, and they bump it up behind the screen without them even seeing. Like, I like that appearance of the company in this. I think it's a nice, a different look at Weyland-Yutani that I did appreciate.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, just make him look like this whole company is just like a piece of shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because like everyone's working, and honestly, like even now, even looking at even previous Alien movies, like I don't even know what the main purpose is on most of these adventures. Like, what is the main purpose? They're even in space. What are they even doing on that planet? Like, it seems like in this particular planet, they're mining for something. I don't know what exactly they're mining for. And then even the first Alien, the second Alien, not so much. Like, I think that was pretty clear of what the mission was. But even the first time, they were out there returning back, but then they got an intercept from a planet so they can, Ash knew to retrieve the alien to get it back because they wanted it to experiment on. But yeah, I feel like in some cases we don't really get to know exactly, like, maybe that's not even the point of the movie, but they just give us little nuggets on what this world is without really explaining too much detail of what exactly that everyone's doing here.
But isn't it great that we can appreciate it, but we don't need to have everything over-explained to us? Like, we don't need to know everything. I don't need to know how Wayland Starr got started. Maybe not in this movie, but save that for another movie in the franchise. And then, each movie feels a little different, so that they're not all just like the original Alien movie. So they each movie gives us like a little piece of the puzzle. So whereas you're not getting everything all in one movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Prometheus, Ernesto, does go into a little Weyland-Yutani.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry, Weyland, not Weyland. Sorry, you get to see Guy Pearce. Right? Is that
in his only non-action role, you get to see.
I'm pretty sure he plays Weyland, right? Adam, is that correct?
Dude, that old
Pretty
guy?
positive.
Yeah, he does.
Is that the one with Michael Fassbender?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That actually, those two movies, Covenant and Prometheus, kind of showed you the shift in the wage disparities and like the differences in the people that live and encompass the overall alien lore. Because your first few movies, you have poor people, like we're scrappers, we're out in space, we're trying to find ways to gain wealth so we can leave these horrible planets that Weyland-Yutani has been destroying by building their corporations on. And then in Covenant and Prometheus, we get to see actually what the executives have been plotting this whole time from way up high, kind of, trying to advance and push the human race further forward through genetic testing, obviously, to kind of gain what Weyland was searching for in the end, which is eternal life.
Yeah. And he didn't get that.
He did not.
No. I think we all knew how that was going to end, and I think it's funny that even this
unachievable.
just a little bit. I do find it interesting though that even with Romulus, we're still going with the idea of the perfect specimen. We see that with Rook when we get to that in a little bit, but like their still function, their prime function as a synthetic is. Like, I'm sorry, artificial person, as they prefer to be called.
Callback.
Callback, thank you. You get it. I saw a breakdown video like 30 minutes ago, so they reminded me of all that stuff. Yeah.
Could have been thanks. Might have forgot.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it's interesting that like even you see that in Prometheus, you see that in Alien Covenant. We saw that in Alien and even Aliens that these Weyland-Yutani synthetics are programmed for basically, for the most part, one simple mission, which is to move evolution forward, no matter what the cost of it all. Yep. And I think this movie did a good job of making Rook that example that Weyland-Yutani is still on this same mission, no matter what age year era that we are in this Alien franchise.
No matter what happens, Synthetic's directive is do what's best for the company.
Exactly. Yep. Exactly. But yeah, I failed to mention that we see within the opening scene of the movie, we see the scientists pick up this cocoon that, at least in the breakdown video, described as it looked like the alien was able to survive without any oxygen and kind of build this cocoon within space to protect itself. That's why it was still alive. Like that, the first alien we see in the first movie was still alive, floating in space. That was the spacecraft, Romulus and Romulus picked up this alien, and then we don't see the events happen, but we kind of see the remnants of it all. That alien was able to get out and kind of destroy the entire crew, leaving it stranded up where our main cast's planet is, which is it's kind of interesting that even now thinking about it, that alien caused further destruction after the events of Alien, after the first film, which I feel like that could be a movie in and of itself if they really wanted to go down that path. But that's not the movie we got. It was almost like, here's the remnants of a destruction, and somehow they were able to kill it. Don't know how, but they found a way to do so. But yeah, so anyway, that was it. That was that, and then we get introduced to Rain, and like I said, Andy. We find out very quickly that Andy is a synthetic, and I'm kind of curious of your thoughts. And Grayson, I'll start with you. The evolution of Andy's character throughout the film, and kind of the role he plays as an artificial person / synthetic, and kind of comparing it to the different roles that has played throughout the films as well.
I liked what they did with him in the film overall. It was fun to watch. From the very beginning, you meet him, and if I remember correctly, I don't think you even you don't realize he's even an android until the kids outside like beat him up, and she's like, "Oh no, you're bleeding," and then you realize it's white blood. It's like, oh, I liked the introduction of that, because he wasn't your typical artificial person. He was he was a piece of junk from some scrapyard somewhere that her dad put back together and made Rain his new directive. I liked that introduction there. It wasn't a way artificial person. It was very fun. And then we start to go in there, and he's still, people are unsure about it. There's still that distaste for androids in general, that you see by, I can't remember the character's name, but the cousin in there. You learn about his, yes, Bjorn, that was it. You learn about his distaste for androids, and where there's kind of this tension between humans and them, and that starts to build up. And then you get to that scene where she puts the chip in so that they can get access to the door, and then all of a sudden he switches on to that new directive, and now he's that opposition android that now they're not only he doesn't. I think it's that he didn't feel like their friend necessarily anymore, but he's not their enemy either. He went from being this lovable, helpful guy that Rain's always had around to now this I don't really know if we can completely trust him to make what's his ulterior motive here. After that was fun to watch, because it added that extra intensity when now the one person who could keep you safe and open doors and get you through places is now maybe not always working with you anymore. So I really liked seeing that. And then we get to the end where the chip is out and he's back to good old Andy, and he says, "Get away from her, you bitch." That was going back to that. I liked that cycle. It was fun. It was a fun ride for that character.
I think that's a very different way that we've seen a synthetic in this franchise, because to your point, and you made a really good point, that pretty much all the other synthetics have been Weyland-Yutani run. They have a primary directive, but this one was able. I guess Rain's father was able to get the chip out, maybe reprogram it. And not really explain too much, but we saw a softer side of it, and in a very weird way, it kind of feels like Terminator, where the first Terminator, it's at the very directive of, we got to kill Sarah Connor, and then all of a sudden, in the second movie, we get the reveal that, oh, Arnold Schwarzenegger's not our villain, he's our hero. Whoa! And I feel like that they kind of played around with that idea. It feels very similar to that, whereas like we have a synthetic now that we can sympathize with, and then all of a sudden he gets reprogrammed, and this is the one that we're familiar with, and then goes back to the one that we can again sympathize with. Adam, what about you about Andy's progression throughout the film?
So I think Andy was a bit of an anchor for Rain, kind of keeping her, like he said, kind of keeping her safe, kind of keeping her grounded, taking care of her for the longest time. And I think it showed us that Rain needed him just as much as she may have, she needed him just as much as he may have needed her. And the thing that Alien has always tried to push is the fact that androids or synthetic people or artificial people, they have some seed of sentience to them, perhaps. And we get some of that in Covenant through David, because they start to show us like, well, maybe David can feel, because he starts to speak and question his own reality. And that's when the new android David shows up and kills him. But there's that kind of storytelling that still shows us that there may be sentience within androids yet. We just still haven't got there. I think that the growth between both of those characters is really good, and it does show that whoever her father was, he had a great sense of humor. And that he can definitely cut tension, and they did use him quite a few times in the film to actually help relieve a bit of that tension before they really wrenched it in.
Especially even give inspiration too, when they were like kind of sitting there accepting their fate, at least Rain was, and all of a sudden they told a gravity joke and she's like, wait a minute, cue cool action scene. But yeah, Ernesto, what about you? Andy's character. I think your mic might be muted.
Oh, sorry. I was saying I think that he was a great addition. He was a great addition to the cast. Very obviously different from the original Alien with from Ash, a polar opposite. Very Terminator 1 to Terminator 2. It worked. It worked as an anchor point. It worked as a plot device. They used him as a plot device, but they also made you care about him as a character and like kind of where he was from and everything and why he was so dedicated to Rain. I think it was great. It was something different.
Yeah, I think again with a lot of this movie is giving us something similar but different in a way that we can appreciate it, but still give us that nostalgia factor that this movie has been giving us throughout the entirety of its run. So then kind of picking up with the story, we see that Tyler finds that there's a signal coming from the orbit, and then they decide I think they also realize that there are cryopods that are also aboard the space.
Cryostasis chambers.
Yeah, there you go. I think they were able to recognize that they were probably, either they assumed that they were probably up there, or they knew for a fact that they were up there. And then this was a mission that everyone decided to go on because they wanted to go to the safe haven called Baga?
What?
No. Yaga.
You got it?
Yaga.
Maybe. Is it Yaga?
I think so.
What is it?
I think is a Yaga in there. I feel like
Yavaga?
there's some other
It's
syllables.
Yvaga. Yavaga?
Yeah. Yavaga. That's
Yavaga.
That's it. We got there.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That was teamwork, everybody.
Sounds like
I'm not here for a lot, but I'm here to help when I can, Matt.
Even like one of the first scenes in the movie, we see Rain dreaming about what was the name? I forgot it. Yavaga, thank you. About dreaming about the safe haven, experiencing the sunrise, and so I think they were able to it's 9 years away, but if we can go, we just need these tubes to get us there. And so Tyler, the only thing that's stopping them is getting access to the ship, which Andy is, since he's a artificial person, he can get his way through the ship to get the tubes, the pods, so everyone can then, seems like a simple mission, obviously. What can go wrong? So they're able to get up there. They're able to use Andy, who is to open all the doors and decommission the spaceship and steal the cryopods. I just saw that. I'm reading my notes now. A lot of what I liked about this movie is even a lot of the setup. I think Aliens did a really good job of setting up scenes that would be later in the film, especially with like Ripley and the big mech suit that she was in, and then all of a sudden that's going to be the same machine that she uses to kill the mother alien. The queen alien. And so I think even the preparation as we are slowly entering the ship, as they're going into discovering the first set of pods, which they realize that don't have enough juice to get us to the 9-year mark, so they have to go further into the ship, which probably was a disaster, obviously waiting for them. But even before that, we see Andy playing a video game when they're all like talking about their plan, and Andy, the little creatures looks very similar to face huggers, and the guy was kind of just shooting back and forth with them, so foreshadowing what they had to do later in the film. There's also the hook harness that Andy touches, like it was kind of in his way, and he kind of pushes it aside, and then I think Bjorn was like, come on, hurry up, let's keep moving. And that was the same harness that was used to that Rain used at the very end of the movie when she climbed into the spacesuit. There's also the anti-gravity the gravity generator malfunctioning that was used to an effect later on in the movie. And then the weirdest foreshadowing, which I wasn't expecting, when they gave us this painting, apparently is a painting of a plague from 1720, focusing on bodies of plague victims and a living baby trying to breastfeed from his dead mother. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's a really interesting thing to focus on out of this painting. But we will soon realize that that was another foreshadowing moment that we'll definitely talk about in horrific fashion. But then we get to the facehugger scene, and I thought that was really cool. Again, I think they really played up the facehuggers in this time around. We get to the point where they find the canisters that's long enough to make this journey, and yet in order for them to do that, they had to decrease the temperature in the room. And then we just see these aliens, which is, to me, this is where like the creepiness really started. We just see them dropping into the water, and to me that was just like, you know what they do. To Adam's point, this is the point of the movie where like we know what it is, we know what's going to happen, but it's just waiting for that moment to happen. And I think this is when it really starts up. So you're like, oh man, someone's about to get their face hugged, and it's not going to be good. It's not going to be pretty. And then so much so that like we see, I mean, really focusing on the intensity of the buildup here. They find kind of what we think it's either a dead synthetic. We later find out that's Rook later on, but or maybe another synthetic that they're able to grab the chip from, and that chip was going to be useful so he can get into more things, if not mistaken. Like he didn't have access to certain things, but he was able, by implanting that chip into Andy, he was able to get access to more about the ship and maybe learn about what's happening to all where the crew members are. But there was a mix between Andy rebooting, the facehuggers falling into the water, them kind of being trapped there, and then all of a sudden the intensity kind of builds upon that. We see them trying to get out. They eventually, Andy reboots himself, grabs one of them by the tail, tosses them, gets through the door, narrowly missing it. And then I think we saw this shot in the trailer, but I think it just really really captures like a good ending to that scene, was where we just see one facehugger just like flying in the air, just attaches on one of the crew members and just like smacks him on the ground. You're like, holy shit. I think honestly it was that moment for me when we went from like, that was a great blend of like the horror of what this franchise is, and then the intensity and the action of what the sequel was. But what Ernesto, I see you over there. What do you think about that scene?
I did, because like I was saying earlier, like this is like one of my favorite scenes of the movie, because this is like one of the times you see the facehuggers they attach to the face, but you see how invasive they get. Like you literally see the thing go down her mouth, and like them then it gets pulled off. It's just really, really intense. Just a very, very intense scene.
Yeah, and then we also know, based off the other movies, like we know what this means. Like, and we kind of know that like they're trying. You get a little alien baby. Yeah, nothing wrong, little alien baby. That's fine. But we see them trying to get it out. At this moment, they plug in what we later find out to be scientific officer Rook, who looks very similar to Ash, who is played by the late Ian Holmes. And this scene in particular, and what that followed throughout the rest of the movie, kind of sparked a lot of controversy. Even because Ian Holmes died in 2020, and now they're using his likeness again. And for a large portion of the movie, he is in it. Director Fede Alvarez said in the creation of Rook was achieved through the combination of animatronic built resemble Holm and actor Daniel Beat performing his lines. But clearly there were visual effects used. I mean, it looked a little bit off-putting in some cases. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it definitely looked like there were some visual effects that were definitely also used in this scene. He also received a blessing from Holmes' estate to use the late Ian Holmes' likeness. The ability to filmmakers to bring dead actors back from the screen through technology is still relatively new, so the priority of Alvarez was to check in with the Holmes family. He said as soon as we were finished with the rough version, the first thing I did was make a call to his family and make sure they were the first ones to see what he would look like in the film. But Adam, I'll start with you with this question. How do you feel about kind of bringing this character back to life? It's not Ash, it was just a different version. They clearly could have just put another person in there, but do you think it was needed to bring that specific look to the synthetic back into this franchise?
I think so. Honestly, I think he brought a lot to the role. Granted, it's not him, but he brought a lot to the role, and he brought previous watchers from the first movie kind of in, because that's the moment when you saw him that you were like, oh, I know who this is. And then he starts to tell you the directive again, and as we go through the movie, kind of you start to unveil his plot of like, yeah, he has not changed. This is the same person, but obviously we have a new cast now, and they have no idea what his directive is, but you know. So like I said previously, the movies themselves all stitching themselves together, and you being able to point at something and go, hey, I know that. I know what this person is doing is even more shocking the second time around, because now I know and they don't know, and I want to tell them, but I can't.
Grayson, what about you?
I was very... I love seeing that the Ash model android was back in there. That was fun for me, because I remember when they first find what was left of his body on the ground. That's when they're going to pull the chip out, and at first, it sort of looked. It was definitely a science officer uniform, and I was like, I wonder. And then there's that little jump scare there where he's like, whoa, and they try to pull the chip. I was like, okay, I couldn't tell what that was. It might be something different. And then they do get him out, and it's Rook, but it is the Ash model. And I was like, that's really cool, because what I like, kind of like what Adam was saying, it not only does it bring familiarity to, well, it's the same, it's hand in hand with the familiar, but it's familiarity with the face and the appearance, but also it brings with it all of those preconceived notions that you've had from your previous experience with him, which was shit in the first movie. Like, I liked that kind of came back too. And because I think the interesting thing to me was that it is Rook, it's not Ash. And because we have seen Andy be a more, albeit he is modified in a way, but he is much more helpful, reserved, polite, much less, much more human-like in that way. I wondered for a second if maybe that was going to, if Ash, this Rook would end up being a more helpful artificial person, end up, and kind of being more of a friend than a hindrance, or at least, that he would take on that role of, seeing that the hubris was a terrible idea, and they, this whole operation was doomed. But they did end up still kind of going with that classic, same old Ash, like that what's best for the company, get that alien back home. We gotta do evil stuff with it. I liked seeing that reappearance, and with the effect itself, I thought it looks like that effect, like that bringing that CG over the face kind of thing. It has an appearance. I think in certain scenes where lighting was done, the lighting was a little dimmer. I think it looked a little better, a little cleaner. But overall, yeah, I didn't mind it.
You actually brought up a really good point. I'm not sure if any other movie has brought two synthetics together to actually have a conversation and discuss a plan that's like, hey, remember their directive? Let's continue with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that to your point, playing off of Andy, who just got this chip into him, like he's like, hey, remember the directive? He's like, no, I have to protect Rain. Like, no, you have a new directive now. I'm like, okay, I'm listening. What is this? And then kind of being influenced by Rook to like, hey, we're here for the company first, not for the people. Yeah, I honestly, I didn't really think about that until you mentioned it. It's like, yeah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the first time we actually see two synthetics like have a conversation like that.
In Covenant, you do get
David. With himself.
David with
David,
yeah,
with himself, or what was his name? It wasn't David. It was David and
another version, another model.
It was the newer model. I don't know why I can't. It wasn't Darwin. I don't know why I pulled Darwin either.
It was Walter.
That's it. Walter. Yeah, you do see them engaged in some intimate conversations in that film. So it's not necessarily the first time, but it's this is a different kind of interaction, I think, between the two of them. It's definitely a different interaction, but it was fun. It was really fun to watch that.
Yeah, Ernesto, what are your thoughts about bringing this kind of actor back to life with his performance? I think your mic is muted again.
I don't think I didn't know at first, so it wasn't until I watched the first one I go, they brought the same actor back, and then it wasn't until I did the research later on. So for me, it was a non-issue because it's like, it's just an android guy there. Like, why is everybody making a big deal? I don't know. No, but I think it always brings up an interesting issue about the use of AI and just the digital recreation of certain people. But I mean, yeah, it's an issue. But if you have the family's blessing, especially a couple interviews out there, they said he had felt like Hollywood had forgotten about him, but it was glad to see the Alien franchises was something that he really loved working on. So they were happy that he was able to be a part of the next iteration of it, even if he's not physically here. At least his likeness was helped bring this about. So, I mean, if the family's for it and they're the one who have to live and honor his legacy, then it shouldn't really be an issue for anybody else.
Yeah, and also, I mean, even reading articles with Fede Alvarez, the director, he seemed like he wanted to bring this to life. He was very careful of how he did it, very cautious with the estate. So I think if it's all in good,
it was in good taste. It was all done in good taste. So I think it was fine.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah. I think it was all in good taste. I don't see much of a problem with it. If everyone's on board with it and no one has a problem with it, then in some ways it's kind of like, all right, to the people who do have a problem with it, like, why? Maybe you shouldn't. I don't. Yeah, exactly. It's like,
if his wife and his family don't care, then why do you care?
Yeah, at that point, you're not wrong. Yeah, there's some other factors to it, but at the end of the day, they went through the proper channels. Everyone was okay with it. Then we should be all right with it as well.
I'm okay with it. For the
record, okay, Adam, you're good with it. I'm glad we're all on the same page here. So then, like we said, we get to learn more about what happened on this ship. We realize that is in fact the same alien from the first movie, as Rook was explaining. And then he recommended freezing the tail, which they did. But ultimately, I'm sorry, I believe her character was named Navarro. It's too late for her. She gets back to the ship, thinks she's all safe.
Great scene.
And poor Kay though. Man, played by Isabel Merced, yeah. I think she's had the roughest time in this movie, and
start to finish.
It all started. Yeah, it's tough start to finish. Like it was. Her first interaction was like, I'm so far. Up until this point in the movie, she didn't really do much. She was kind of just there. She was kind of like just a comforting character for even Rain. They had history, realized that she was pregnant, and she asked who the father was, and it was said some douchebag, and or some asshole, I think she said. And then after that, she decided not to go onto the ship, obviously, and she took a nap. And then all of a sudden, Navarro comes back in and says, "Hey, my tummy hurts." And then to Ernesto's point, we see kind of like due to the technology that they had, like this glowing like X-ray
body
thing
scanner.
That they had, body scanner, and you see the alien inside of her. And again,
we know what's happening. We know what's about to happen. The chest burster comes out, and I think it just kind of scurries away, right? And oh, that's right. That was in the scene. And talk about the visual design, the production design, just the visuals throughout this movie. We see like their spacecraft kind of just crash into Romulus, and that was the whole inciting incident that like, oh, we have to go save them, and now we have to get to the other side of the spaceship. We went from Ramus to Romulus. But that scene was kind of intense just to visually see kind of up the ante, the action of how this creature was able to cause all this stir. And then I guess it somehow left the ship because we didn't really see much of them afterward. I think the next time we see that particular alien, it was in a cocoon that we later find out that's something new that the Alien franchise hasn't done before. And I think they call like the chrysalis. Thank you. Yeah. Explain that scene, Adam.
Well, it was very interesting. It looked like, well, we all know what it looked like, but it had like a stinger that came out of it and stuff. And it was an interesting new way to show kind of that midpoint between, our small little tadpole and our full-sized alien. And I think they really drilled home kind of a bit of that transformation when we started to see that one finally come out. And like once we saw the scene widen out and we saw that there were multiple ones in there, you were just waiting. You were waiting for this thing to come out because one of them was going to hatch. You knew it. And then when you saw him, like, his feet for the first time extend and pop out, all of his little toes and stuff, and it was a sight to see.
Yeah, it really was a sight to see. And it was also just, again, Adam, to your point, just building upon that suspense that this movie did a great job for, and then also just kind of, again, paying homage to the first Alien movie. Like, it's just these slow close-up moments where you're just like sitting there, you're just like, oh shit, someone's gonna die. And they did. Even prior to that, we see Bjorn trying to be a hero, literally shoves his gun into the cocoon or the egg, whatever it really was, the chrysalis, sorry, and just shoots it up, and somehow doesn't kill him. Or if it does kill, but actually, now that I'm trying to remember, I don't know if it was the exact same chrysalis.
I think it was a different one. I think it was a different one, because the one that killed him had hatched, and as it hatched, the acid came out of it and melted our boy. Also, just the role of acid, the acidic blood throughout this movie, it was also to a great and painful effect because it literally dripped into Bjorn, and we just see him just decaying, which was just like horrific to see because you don't die like that. What do? You can't even get it off. He tried. He just rubbed it in.
Yeah, if you try to get it off, you're kind of, it's worse because you're like, oh my god, now it's on your hand, and then you touch your leg, and now it's on your leg, and then you're just slowly just deteriorating. It's just something you kind of just have to accept. To your point, there's nothing you can really do about it, which is like an unnerving thing that like your reaction is to like immediately fix the problem so you don't die, but you doing more is actually doing more harm than it is good. But also just a last ditch effort from the aliens to do that. And again, poor Kay, she just saw her friend die from the facehugger, from the chest burster. She's out now of the ship trying to get to her other friends for safety. She sees her, I guess it will be her cousin. I don't really know. Yeah, I guess it will be her cousin. He dies right in front of her. She's trying to get out. And then she was like, this was in the scene where they're also in the facehugger scene and they're trying to quietly go through. And then to me, this was kind of stupid. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you disagree with me, say something. But like, she's calling out to them through a radio, and it's obviously creating a sound. And so instead of keep moving, Tyler decides just to pause and just talk into the radio. It's like, hey, what do you need? And I was like, what are you doing? Keep moving. At the very least, keep moving. Don't stop there. You see all the face huggers, like, what's going on over here? I didn't see them before. And I just said this created more suspense. But for me, I just thought it was silly. I don't know. Ernesto, what do you think? Do you think that was just... I thought it was just a silly moment to have.
It was fine. There's only one moment in the movie that I felt like I had an issue with, and that's when like the gravity, when they're flying down the elevator shaft, where the xenomorph just grabs her and he just lets her go. Oh, it's like, gotcha. Just kidding. You can go. That was the only time in the movie I was like, I don't know. That was the only time that I had a question mark on. Everything else is fine.
They were able to invade the hive, or not the hive, sorry, the facehugger kind of room. And Andy was closing the door, and Tyler was able just to slip through, and Rain was like, you almost missed him. He's like, no, I calculated that. I'm a synthetic. I don't even know that, but I was able to calculate his running speed, and we calculate that perfectly. And in the breakdown video that I saw, made a really good point that Andy was learning from the previous mistake, because by waiting for everyone to go through the door, it allowed that face hugger to just like last minute kind of creep in and attach to the Navarro. And this time around, by closing it before he entered, then completely prevented any facehugger from coming through. So that was within the breakdown. I'm not sure that was intentional, but it sounds about right. Yeah, it worked. And then we see probably one of the coldest moments in the movie where Kay is like, we see them on the other side of the door, and Kay's like, hey, open it. And then it's like, okay, open the door. And then Andy sees the alien creeping from behind, a full-fledged adult at this point. And Andy's like, nah, we're not. We're not doing that. And I think to Grayson, your point, this was the turning point for, I believe, Andy's character to be what he was and what he's kind of turning into at this point. The kind of like, we don't know if we can trust him anymore, because now at that moment we think that Kay is dead. But anyone who's familiar with the franchise knows that I guess aliens don't necessarily kill for some reason. They just capture and take to their hive.
Well, because they use them. It seems like they capture them and then use them to breed more. They kind of use them as like food, like a foods or growing source. But something that this scene also pointed out to me is Andy was talking just about the predatory nature of the alien. Like, at least from the first two movies that I saw, I felt like aliens are more of like, all right, I'm gonna find him and kill him. Whereas this movie, I felt like they were more as predators. Like, you see him lurking. He's like, well, I'm not going to open a door because he's clearly waiting for me to open the door, and then he's going to kill you.
Yeah.
For me, that was one of the only times that I've seen in the franchise where it was a clear point out to the intelligence and the predatory nature of the alien species.
And that's why there's a crossover called Alien versus Predator.
Exactly, yeah. Well, at least that to me, that was like a direct correlation. It was like, oh, like they're actually pointing out how intelligent these things can be. So.
Yeah, and then we also see that even moving forward, that we learn more about this compound Z01, which is the black goo that for some reason Kay decides to inject herself with, which we'll get to in a little bit. But we learn more about how they were testing them with rats, and at that particular point in the video, we're like, oh, everything is fine. It makes you, I guess, it was the idea that it's helping you become a better human. Is it the next evolution of what humans are? I'm not entirely sure what. I think that it was described as a bioweapon created by the engineers to break and reform DNA structure of a living organism. So I guess the scientists at the time were able to capture this black goo from the alien that they killed from the first movie to experiment on, and that's why we got the face huggers all over in the cryo area. We have the experimenting on the rats. I don't know what their purpose was at the end of the day. I think were they just trying to create the better human specimen?
So if you watched Covenant, the black goo was in Covenant as well. And one of the engineers had drank the black goo, and you got to see the rewriting of that DNA in real time.
Oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
But it turned the man into basically dust. And it killed him. So the black goo is known to either create an enhanced life or completely destroy it.
And so far we see more destruction than we have creation. Well, actually, we saw both in this movie.
We did, yeah, because we also saw it completely destroy in Alien Covenant every single alien. They basically ranked it down.
Yeah, that's right. Also, within that scene, they had like a moment where we get to discover what a gun is and get to learn how to use one. Very similar to Aliens, where they're kind of going through their weapons and see what they have, and then we find that Kay is alive. She was captured by, she was put into the hive. We see this hive mind area where multiple aliens have been, and I think this is the first time that we've seen multiple aliens now. Right at this point in the movie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure we've only ever seen the face hugger, the chest burster, and then now we see where the hive is, and then multiple aliens are now coming into play. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, there were I mean, to this point, if you're looking at it in chronological order, yes. But if you're looking at it from the order of like how these movies have come out and everything, we also saw in I don't remember if it was Prometheus or Covenant, when we saw that David was testing basically remnants of Shaw with these alien DNAs to create different aliens. So you actually saw that in Covenant. He actually did like a whole thing inside of that cave area when he came out and gave that whole monologue about kind of what they were doing with the DNA and how they were trying to create multiple different kinds of perfect specimens, but they've all failed.
And whatever the perfect specimen is to them, I guess. To the engineer. I don't know if it's like the engineer or if they truly think the alien is the perfect specimen. I'm not sure. Well, the Rook and even Ash believe that is the perfect specimen. We're just trying to recreate that for our benefit, and so far it's just come to disastrous effect.
It's not working.
No, it's not working. So in the midst of finding Kay, I believe Tyler dies. We see Andy get tripped, which also we get to see this cool like laser effect in this scene as well, which I think we've seen in the first Alien movie, which still looks cool today. Doesn't change how cool it looks. I think does Tyler get ripped apart by an alien?
You don't see him get ripped apart. He gets like stabbed through the back and then pulled up. He goes up into a little hole, and then he has a staring contest, and then
little alien does a little punch through the head. It's the signature kill. It's the signature alien kill.
He opens his mouth.
Yeah, it's been his other tiny mouth. Yeah,
his other tiny mouth punches him in the face. Stop moving. Stop
it's
shooting.
Like your tongue has a mouth, and that's what you get.
Yeah, that thing punches him in the face a few times.
The origins of the word. Tongue punch, whatever. I don't know.
And so Tyler believes that this black goo can help his sister do something. I guess be I don't know, like revive her. I know she was weak, but it wasn't really clear what Tyler was saying.
Saying that that black goo would heal her. It's like,
yes, just hear her and like, hey, you look pretty bad. Here's some black goo.
This will help you.
This will help you. Rain was able to get her up onto the elevator shaft, and then I guess stopped it. Then said, "Hey, get up to the back to the spaceship. We'll meet you there." Goes down the elevator, and then in the midst of her going up, is like, I don't know. Tyler, who just died, said like, this is gonna help me, so just stab it in my neck here and call it a day, I guess. That part was a little just weird for me. It's like, you're really gonna trust that? All right, no, it's fine. It should be fine. Nothing weird's gonna happen afterward.
What's the worst that could happen?
I don't know. Do you think she felt like she was gonna die in that moment if she did not take it?
That's a good argument to have. I believe that more than what I just said.
Maybe she she thinks she was gonna die anyway. It's like, well, either I'm gonna die from this flesh wound or I'm gonna die from this goo, and he said this goo's gonna help me, so the goo it is.
And it helped no one.
No. Terrible decision.
It doomed us all.
Worst decision of the movie.
Yeah, you're not wrong. That probably was the worst decision. You know what? Andy's looking pretty good right now. Because he's like, hey, she should die. And then it's like, okay, we ended up saving her, but then she makes stupid decisions. They're like, all right, well, we tried. I kind of warned you guys, but here we are.
Yeah. Well, that's when the dumbest part of the movie to me happened, where they were like, because at the first of the movie, they're like, hey, Andy, we need you to put this chip in because we need it to get indoors. And they were like, oh, yeah, that's probably right. They put it in, and then they're like, Andy, we need to take that chip out right now. And they take it out, and they're like, we need to go through that door, Andy.
Put the chip back in.
And it was like, you knew you took the chip out.
You did this. Now you have to pay for these consequences. And then so then obviously Rain has a connection with Andy. She goes down the elevator shaft. by the stairs or the ladder, I guess. She gets this cool Ripley pose where she is slowly coming out. The smoke's coming in. She has a gun in her hand. Very superhero pose, kind of surveying the area as she's entering the hive. Very similar to when Ripley's looking for Newt and Aliens. Definitely a badass moment. She finds Andy, and then she's like, "Hey, Rook, can you open this door?" And he says the infamous line, "I can't lie about your chances, but you have my sympathies," and then kind of shuts them out and allows them to pretty much die. They start going back. They kind of accepting their fate. Aliens are coming in to kill them. The ship is, I guess, throughout all the entire movie, the Romulus and this whole spacecraft, the space station, is slowly going into this belt of its own destruction, right? Yeah, they have about maybe 15 minutes to live. Or before the spacecraft, the space station goes down, and then they tell a gravity joke. And to me, I think this is one of the coolest parts of the movie. That between them using the gravity to kind of lift the aliens up to then just kind of just spray all over them and just like I'm gonna just unload on this magazine and just kill them. I know that they said that the gun that she was using helps them like maneuver where they wants to go and aim. I don't even know if that was happening at that moment because she was just going like that, and it's like everyone was dead at that moment. I thought what really cool what followed though was just the floating acidic blood, and she has to like evade that, and like it's almost like the battle isn't over just because you killed the alien. Here's now this floating acid that you have to deal with, and I thought that was a really cool action meets suspense scene. In there, Ernesto, what do you think about that scene?
That's what I was mentioning earlier. Like, what another great setup for a scene. Like you just said, it's done. Oh no, I've got to fly through the floating acid. Hope I don't burn myself and die, or I hope the gravity doesn't shut off midway. Like, there's so many different things at play during that moment that she has to contend with. Because what if that anti-gravity stuff had shut off? Then she would have fell. The acid would have fell on her. Roll credits. Like, would have been the end of the movie.
Yeah, at that point. And also, I think acid has played a huge role in the Alien franchise, and I think this was done in a really in previous films. I feel like it was done in very like horrific effect. Like, oh no, even we saw it earlier in this movie, but this was used in a very suspenseful effect that I don't think I've ever seen in an Alien movie before. Yes, it is just used differently. She used the gun to evade one of them before the gravity goes down, and then I think the gravity kicks back in when they're in the elevator shaft, and then they have that whole action set piece going back and forth. We have Andy deliver the iconic line, "Get away from her, you bitch," with a pause in between. And that scene, I'm not sure if it was Ernesto or Grayson was talking about that scene, but it felt a little off. Like, I feel like we were kind of pretty being loose with the gravity rules at that moment. I feel like we're also loose with how much ammo was in the gun, because I'm pretty sure she used the last of that ammo to get herself away from the acid before it fell, and then all of a sudden Andy gets like a recharge. It's like, oh, you missed a few, I got you in the chamber. But what do you think about the whole scene, Grayson?
That I like the entire overall. Yes, I like the scene. It was very fun. It was very much that more Aliens kind of big adventure scene with just having the whole escape up the elevator shaft. But it's funny because I remember when we saw it, Matt, you mentioned the hero's infinite ammo kind of magic gun, and it's funny because that was something I did want to bring up actually, is when we were talking about aliens being more fast paced. A lot of the scenes where they're fighting the hordes and aliens, it's very much that shot of somebody holding a gun, backed up kind of against the corner shooting. Then you get a shot of all the aliens just popcorning everywhere. And then it goes back. It'll show you the ammo counter on the rifle. And it just repeats that a couple times really quickly. And I like that they did that in that scene where she is taking out a majority of them, because it is that very much like, then the ammo counter, then the aliens exploding. And so you do see it decrease. And then, we use it to evade the floating acid, and then we use it again when they are going back into the shaft, and that one grabs her by the foot. She shoots it then again, and so it's like, well, That was the one thing where I was like, yeah, that would have been. I don't care as like that doesn't bother me too much when I'm just watching the movie and really enjoying it. But on like that little, it's one of those little idiosyncrasies that does it always gets me. But the scene as a whole, yeah, I really enjoyed playing with the gravity aspect there, all the way from back at the beginning when they were first finding the cryo chambers. That played a role there. They're like, why are we floating? The gravity will purge itself even if the station's down. And here that comes back, they turn it back on and actually use it as an advantage and less of an annoyance and a hindrance at the beginning. And then the elevator. The other thing that was funny to me is I like that the elevator is like falling down the shaft, like insanely fast, super heavy, and Andy's just like and props it up.
Yeah, that's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I gotcha. That was good, but I do like this when the elevator has gone down and crushed all the other aliens, and we do see, of course, that one bastard is still there. He's hanging out, and he does come really close to Rain. I like that they did that parallel to Alien 3 there, where the alien is very close to Ripley and she's kind of free. I like that parallel. That was fun, and I think that was a nice like. I think it was a good, what do I want to call it? Kind of almost a fake out ending, because you're thinking, okay, well, yeah, there went all the aliens. We're on our way out now. We're getting out of here. I did like that, which would lead into the next part, which I guess we can talk about in a minute. But yeah,
yeah, I believe that there is I think there's a little bit of feedback here. I think about what. Do you hear that, Ernesto?
No.
Is it just me? Am I hearing feedback? No. Okay. All right. Sorry. I thought I heard my voice for a second. Anyway, you just want to keep going? Okay. All right. We're gonna keep going. That scene. To the fake out moment. Obviously they go back up. They see. Yeah. It kind of very classic to the Alien and Aliens, where we think our heroes are safe, and then all of a sudden you realize that there's still another 20 minutes left in this movie.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's gonna happen here? And so then we get to the scene that I don't think I was ready for. No
one can be ready for that.
No, I don't think so. And it's funny because I didn't know about this before, but apparently a lot of people were hyping up the third act of the movie. Luckily, I wasn't anticipating it. But literally after I saw the movie, I was seeing so many things about like the crazy third act and like you're not going to believe how this movie ends and stuff like that. And luckily I was never part of I never saw that marketing on social media. So this was generally a surprise where I feel like the movie is sort of wrapping up, but I do feel like there's one left scare. Like, oh, maybe another alien was able to sneak on like in the first movie, but they took it a little extra step further in this movie. So obviously we see Kay back and she's in Rain kind of puts her back into the pod. We see Andy kind of powering down just to be there as in case the ship needs some sort of maintenance. He's kind of like a low power mode at this point. And Rain's just, she's getting ready. She's like, all right, we did the job, everybody. We're going to go into our pod. And all of a sudden we see some alerts going and Kay's pod opens up. We see her belly really, really big. And we know what that means. And so all of a sudden I think nothing comes like bursting out, but I think she gives birth to this pod that I think Rain then tries to pick up and try to get it out of the ship, but it was too late because the acid, I think it was able to hatch and the acid went down into the basement of it. And then we see what is eventually called the Offspring. And so, Adam, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on the Offspring.
I thought that was really cool for the first time. It wasn't popping out of us. We weren't having a C-section to get it out of us. We were actually birthing this alien. We were giving birth to something different. Mm-hmm. And boy, oh boy, was I not ready for how different that thing was going to be. But panning back to the painting that you referenced earlier.
Yes.
Giving us that image of the child basically breastfeeding from the dead mother. This is where we get that after this offspring has been birthed and then turns into this strange linky creature that is known as the offspring. That's when we see it for the first time, kind of drinking off of its dead mother. And the moment that got me was the second that thing turned around and smirked right into the camera and broke the fourth wall. It was so unsettling, I have to say. I've never felt so weird looking at something. I was like, this is kind of gross and freaky, and I loved it. For a new monster, you normally don't get that from anyone other than Guillermo del Toro, and this time we got something crazy, and I loved it.
Grayson, what about you? And Grayson, while you're talking about it, Ernesto, can you pull up an image of this offspring?
I've been looking. I think I found one. Let me see if I can get it for you guys.
Okay.
I think this is it.
There we go.
Yep.
What a creature that is. Grayson, what are your thoughts of the offspring? Because literally the first thing you asked me when this movie was over is like, so what about that ending? And you seem pretty excited about it.
It's one of those. I don't know. I do I like the idea of where that went with there being an offspring from that. It didn't affect her physically, like directly. It affected her pregnancy, which that was cool. I didn't see that coming necessarily, but yeah, the I don't know. The first time I saw him on the screen, part of me, I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that. And it definitely got me. I know Ray and I told this, but when that came on the first time we saw it in 4D, everybody's like, the seats are kind of going and it's getting serious. And then you see its face for the first time, and Ray just was like, huh! I get where it could look like super freaky, and it's unsettling, but on the other hand, I'm also kind of laughing at it for some reason. It's like, and it was, I remember when I first saw it, I leaned over and I was like, man, that kid could play some basketball. And sure enough, I believe the actor who plays him is a basketball player, is it not?
He is. Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 7'1".
Yeah, 7'1", which is that's insane. But yeah, that was funny. So I like the idea of it. I don't necessarily think it was, at least personally, it wasn't my favorite way to see. I would have liked to seen something a little different, other than like weird geriatric humanoid baby man. But I do like the idea of it, and yeah, at the end of the day, it was especially the jump scare that it does give you at that very last jump scare with Bebe is very funny.
Yeah, those eyes.
So when I even before we get to see it in its full form, which grew rapidly, when we saw the first image of it when it was a baby, and I was like, oh my god, that looks like an engineer. Like that looks like an engineer. And then all of a sudden, like, nope, that is not engineer. That is something completely different. The director said that it was purposely designed to look like a freakish form of the engineer, like a mix between the engineer and oh my god, what was?
See, look at how pretty that one is.
Yeah, I found a better picture.
That's Sigourney's Bibbit.
Wow. Well, okay.
Sorry, it's very distracting.
It was a mix. The appearance was a freakish form that's supposed to have the appearance that's supposed to be mixed of the engineer and a xenomorph. And I think we later see that obviously the offspring has a tail at some point.
Yeah, got little nubbins.
Yeah. I think if again, this movie did a really good job of playing with suspense and kind of not taking an unexpected turn, very similar to Ernesto, the movie you didn't see called Don't Breathe, where there was an unexpected turn in the final act of the movie. I'm not gonna disclose, but there was a twist in there that I wasn't expecting in that movie, and I feel like this versions of it where you're like, oh, okay. But then when you also think about it, Grayson, this is not too far off from Alien 3, or was it 4?
There's 3.
You're talking about the one with the gift that we just showed
with his eyes up close.
That is 4, I believe.
Is that 4?
Because that's in Resurrection, and then it gets like sucked up against. They kill it by sucking it up against the wall with that tiny little hole, and it's like like a Muppet while it gets sucked out.
that one freeze frame before you get sucked out.
Well, mind you, the Ripley clone in that movie is crying. That it happens.
Yeah, he's very sad. It's like.
What's going on here? This is why we don't watch 3 and 4 anymore. It's very strange. But it's wow. It was a really interesting way to end that movie. Yeah, it's supposed to it has that blend between the engineer and the xenomorph. And then we see, Adam, to where you were describing a very horrific scene, which we see the offspring kind of breastfeeding from his dead mother at that point, because I'm pretty sure she is lifeless at that point. And we even see that even foreshadowing where she like goes into her shirt and she like in her hands is like this goo that's also coming out. So that was just gross. And then like even at the end, I was like, you know what was weird earlier in the movie? That they kind of zoomed in on that painting where that baby was breastfeeding from that dying woman, and then Ray's like was like, not the foreshadowing you thought you were gonna get in this movie. It wasn't. Absolutely not. That was not what I was expecting. Like, oh, that's a weird thing that they're just focusing on. It's just a visceral image. That's all. But no, they did. Yeah. I mean, good on them. There's a lot of foreshadowing in this movie. Also paying homage, we see Rain kind of stepping into a spacesuit. Mm-hmm. And using that to her advantage to ultimately, I guess the only way to kill an alien is to get it out of an airlock and have it just float into deep space. I guess that's the way to do it. And we saw that in a very action-heavy fashion, and she delivers her own line very similar to Ripley. Instead of saying "get away from her, you bitch," she says "die, motherfucker," which is, again, could be the new classic, but I doubt it. And then after that, like, we have the heroic, and then we get to see some really, really awesome visuals. In the midst of all this, we see, even failed to mention that the Romulus Space Center crashed into the asteroid belt, and we see this really cool, visually, like, stunning look of like this ship just going in destruction. And I think that's one of the kind of the unsung heroes in this movie, was how this movie looks. And I think it just looks gorgeous, and kind of showcasing that in the midst of all this destruction, this action, we get to see like this beautiful space shot, which I believe was also silent when it was happening. That it's just a really cool visual moment. And then again, at the very end, we see again another paint homage to the first film, that Rain is kind of logging her, which I don't even understand why she's doing that. In a way, like Ripley doing it kind of made sense because she was still going home, so kind of just cataloging what happened. For her, she's not even going to she's not even going back to her planet. She's going to, Yavaga, I forgot what it's called already, for her safe haven. So maybe in case anyone finds her, maybe that's what the log is for, if anything happens to this ship. But regardless, she does her little send off. I believe her and Andy are now the only survivors left. And Andy was kind of struggling at the end of that movie as well, but she put him in the cryo tube everywhere. Anyway, very similar to how Bishop was kind of put in like half a body into cryo sleep in the end of Aliens. That unfortunately we never get to see the result of any of that. But yeah, and then the movie ends very Alien fashion, again paying homage to the entire franchise as a whole. But yeah, I mean that we just went through everything of the movie. So even with that, I'm gonna kind of go over any final thoughts. Grayson, we'll start with you. Oh, I'm so thank you, Ernesto. You keep me in check. Let's talk about. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, let's talk about the box office. Something we typically do every show. At least for the Rotten Tomato scores, it was favored fairly well. 80% with the critics, 86% with the audience. And so compared to other Alien movies, I would say that's a pretty good score, to say the least. as far as what it made in the box office, it had a budget of $80 million, and within its opening weekend, it made $42 million. At the time of the recording, it made $72.6 million domestically, another $152 million internationally.
Really interesting.
Which is a crazy international gain there, with a grand total of $225.4 million worldwide. So definitely the international market is carrying this movie to make it profitable. Right now, it's well over 3 times its budget. So I think it's one of those situations for a movie to have a under $100 million budget and have a big reward at the end of the day. Do you think, in a way, Adam, we'll start with you because we often talk about box office numbers. Do you think it should have made more? Do you think this warrants a little bit more of a response? Do you think this is a good kind of resurgence for the Alien franchise, box office wise?
Honestly, I think it's a good resurgence. I think it's a good and especially with, like, you know, people probably looking at this more of like as a horror entry. I feel like a lot of people are probably pretty, maybe even surprised that it's done so well at the box office. But I know, you know, nostalgia's in. People are loving the 80s again. So they're definitely looking for reasons to love the 80s more, and this is definitely an homage to that. And, you know, we're hot off the tails of Borderlands. People want to see a good movie.
People are like, what's the next best thing after Deadpool Wolverine? Well, it ain't Borderlands, so we gotta Also, what a great year so far for kind of Disney, because these are, after Disney bought Fox, there's a lot of questions on what they're going to do with the now new IPs that they now own. And I didn't even think about this till now, because they didn't own any of the X-Men movies. So in a span of a summer, we got to see a new version of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which was owned by Fox. Then a few months later, we get to see Deadpool and Wolverine, which was owned by Fox, those characters. And then we get to see their rendition of Alien, which was also owned by Fox. And now under the hands of Disney, and a little bit of reforming and making sure the right creators are involved with it. And also after their tricky history with a lot of these different franchises, we see success all across the board with these franchises, these sci-fi and comic book heavy franchises coming back into the fold, making a shit ton of money in the process. And so it looks like that Disney is making the right calls to make people want to watch their movies in the theater, kind of warranting that movie theater experience with these certain types of movies. So last year, Disney had a horrible year, and they did not make good movies, and the box office reflected that. This year, Disney's kind of coming up on top with almost now $1.2 billion on Deadpool and Wolverine. I believe another $500 million on the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I'm looking at that number quickly again. I believe that they made, let's see here. Yeah, okay, so almost $400 million worldwide on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and another almost $250 for Alien. So yeah, a pretty good run so far, at least as far what the budget has been for these movies. But anyway, as I was about to describe, Grayson, I'll start with you. Your final thoughts on the movie, and also we do a 5-star rating here. So out of 5 stars, where would you rank this? And as well as where you rank this in the Alien franchise as well.
To me, yeah. So overall, I mean, I know we've talked about this. Overall, I really enjoyed it. It's definitely, I rewatched all of them recently, except for Alien 3 and Resurrection. To me, it is, I like I said at the beginning, I think from the drop of the first, the first frame that was on the screen, I immediately was like, yep, this feels like Alien. And it continued that throughout the rest of the film, which I really liked. I mean, you could even say that having the weird misshapen thing at the end was an homage to Alien Resurrection.
I will say it was. Yeah. I would agree with you.
I mean, I would definitely say it was. It's for good or bad, depending on how you look at it. I really liked it a lot. Overall, I did not really have any major qualms with it. It was really fun to watch. It was enjoyable. It had a good blend to me of that horror and that more alien, tight hallways, tight shots, really encapsulating feelings, and then that nice blend of action sequences where you're like, yeah, give it back to him now. That I liked that blend a lot, and I thought it lent itself to a really just well-rounded movie that was enjoyable by a pretty wide, I'd say. I'd imagine this would appeal to a pretty wide audience. So yeah, to me, in loving the franchise. I'd probably give the movie a solid. Do you do point like?
You can do 0.5s, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'd probably, for me anyway, I'd say a 4.5. I really did like it. It was very fun and definitely worth seeing in theaters at least once. I think it lends itself to that bigger presentation for sure. And then in line with the others, Alien it used to be swap. I used to love Aliens more, but actually now I would go Alien. I'd probably go Alien this and then Aliens, and then the rest just kind of teeter down. I think that's a pretty comfortable order for me, which funny. I mean, this takes place in between, and I think that speaks to how they did a good job making it fit there.
Adam, what about you and your rating as well?
I like Grayson said, I think this is a strong entry. I do like the fact that, we roped in a lot of the other Alien films. The film overall is great. I like that we brought back the visceral nature of the actual Alien itself. And I think overall with this film, I'd give it a solid, I'd say 4. Okay. The storytelling's there, the tension's there. It does lend itself to a big screen. I would say if you have the chance to watch it on a big screen, definitely go find one as big as possible. Watch it, feel it, enjoy it. It's definitely a love letter to fans. I know that they were saying that Ridley Scott was extremely happy with it when he saw it, and I think if we continue using Fede Alvarez for future entries into the franchise, I think it's safe to say the franchise is in safe hands.
Yeah, well, actually, speaking to that, where do you see this going? Would you because this franchise takes multiple different forms, as we can tell, but would you rather see a continuation going off of these characters, or would you like to see another Alien movie kind of doing something different? Like, here's another story within the world rather than following kind of Rain into her next journey.
I feel like if we follow Rain into her next journey, we're going to end up probably at another Alien 2, which is great if you more like action. But I feel like I want to know more about what we're searching for. Like, what is Weyland-Yutani? Like, we know where they're searching for everlasting life, and I want to see another look into the higher ups of that world and kind of what they're searching for, because we know every time we send our lower planet people up there, it never ends well for them.
Grayson, what about you? Where do you want to see this franchise goes after this? Because after the money that's making, I think it's safe to say that we're probably gonna get another sequel of this.
Yeah, I would say we're definitely looking at one. I'd hope so anyway. Because they did a fantastic job with this, and like Adam said, I think it's in good hands right now, and I hope they, if it's not Fede Alvarez, I hope they continue at least giving it to someone that we can trust to do a good job. I hope they make the right calls. After this, I don't know if I'd rather see it kind of follow Rain's story more, or if I'm kind of okay with it just being, that's where that went. That's the end of that. And we move on to a different, aspect, a different character, following different people, or, even something that's more, that stays in Wei-Yu the entire time. Like more from a true company perspective to really, I don't know what I would honestly want. But if they can deliver whatever it is, like they delivered this film, then I think we're definitely in for an excellent, next film.
Okay. As I asked that question, I just realized that Disney and also already announced what they're doing. It was announced a while ago.
Oh, the show?
The TV series.
Oh, Alien Earth. Yeah.
Yeah, Alien Earth is set to debut on Hulu in 2025 at some point, from the creator of Legion and Fargo, Noah Hawley. And so he's spearheading this new series, and it says it's a prequel series set 3 decades before the events of the first film, and it's called Alien Earth. So there we go. It also looks like it's going to star Timothy Olyphant.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I heard that.
And Alex Lothar, who played, he's been in several movies. You know once you see him. He was in Andor. He was a lot of voice acting. He was in The Last Duel, The French Dispatch. He's been in several movies. The End of the Fucking World, I believe. Yeah, The End of the Fucking World. He was also a star in that. So yeah, I've seen him in a few things. I think he played really well in this. And so yeah, so that's the next thing that comes with the Alien franchise, is a TV show that's coming next year. So yeah, I guess they have further plans. But Ernesto, anyway, your final thoughts.
I thought it was a fun film. For me, this was, where you guys were coming in as like dedicated fans, haven't seen everything. For me, this was a great entry point to be introduced into the Alien franchise, because seeing this movie basically inspired me to go watch the other ones. Like, well, I don't think I've ever seen the original Alien movie after this. So, but what a great appreciation I have for it. I mean, this movie that came out in '79 still holds up today. I mean, can't say that about a lot of other movies. So, I mean, what a great film. This film was just fun. It was just fun. Like, the action was there, the suspense was there. What a great way to use it. Our technology that we have today to bring the Alien franchise to life. It was fantastic. I would give it. I'm gonna probably give it 4 stars because it was just a fun movie all around.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you there, Ernesto. I'm kind of sitting in the 4-star realm. The third, I think of the 4 stars. I also agree with you there. The third act still has me cringing a little bit, but yeah,
they gave us a surprise. They did give us a surprise in that last act, though.
They did. They gave me a surprise. I don't think I'm still processing.
I think a lot of people are.
Yes. But I think 4 is a good number because, in a way, as we were talking about it, I was thinking that this kind of feels like it's a sequel, but it's also in some ways a remake of the original Alien, just a 2024 version instead of a 1979 version. So yes, obviously we're paying homage to the films that came before it, but we're also it's following a lot of the same beats as the first Alien movie. And so I feel like, in a way, that to Ernesto's point, if this is your introduction to the Alien franchise, I mean, you can use this as a starting point and basically do a Jurassic World, what they did, which is like, yeah, it's a sequel, but it's basically Jurassic Park, just a little bit different. And I feel like Alien Romulus, like, yeah, it's kind of like Alien, but a little bit different. But they're using Alien to kind of, and also Aliens, to spearhead this new story. And so honestly, I think after watching Alien, this movie, and Aliens, I would argue to say this movie is slightly better than the original, because I think it plays a lot to those films' strengths and puts it into this one. Like, even the weirdness of The Offspring, like it did an off-ball move there, but it went for it, and oddly, it still works. It works not only within the movie, but it works within the franchise because they've done this before. So yeah, they took some risks, and I saw some interesting things throughout this movie. And overall, I had a really fun time watching it. I think, Grayson, you mentioned earlier at the very beginning, the beginning of this movie set the tone, and I think that tone was a great way to start the movie. And the opening set the tone for the rest of the movie, where I'm like, this is going to be good. I'm just going to strap in and enjoy it. And I think the pacing as well throughout this movie is as well. I think that was a good pacing, because I was never a huge fan of the Alien franchise, and I always felt like the first Alien movie was a little too slow for me. And then the Aliens movie definitely picked up the pace. I think before this, Aliens was more of my favorite, because it definitely fits the bill of here's your classic 80s action movie, and we're just destroying aliens left and right. Where Alien, there was a really, really, to me, I see Alien as a slow burn. Definitely more of a horror movie, where I'm more of an Aliens guy. That's just me. But I think you need Alien to get to Aliens. And I think with this movie, you need Alien and Aliens to get to Alien Romulus. And I think between these 3 movies, it's just been getting better throughout the years. I'm not counting the other ones because they don't count. And but there you go. That is our spoiler review on Alien Romulus. We took 2 hours to talk about this movie, just about the length, if not longer, of the film itself. So, But Grayson, Adam, thank you for joining us for the first time. I hope you guys enjoyed yourself.
We had a fun time
on Box Office Bingers.
Oh, this was great. No, this was fantastic. Thank you all for having us.
You guys are great. You guys have wonderful insights.
I hope I get a call back.
No, absolutely. Like it's so nice to talk to somebody else besides Matt who has good input.
It's so refreshing to not always have to talk to, because sometimes it just feels like a chore, like I committed to this week-to-week thing, and
we're almost at 5 years now. In October,
isn't it?
Yeah, nuts? November it'll be 5 years.
Yeah. Wow. Is it gonna be 5-year merch? Can we expect a little?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, it's funny because people who have been on the podcast multiple times are now requesting for like SNL has the 5-timers club, and now they're expecting,
that's true.
They're expecting some sort of gift if they've been on the show for more than 5 times. So I don't know if we've had anybody who has been on more than 5. But I think at the very least it's either 4 or very close to 5 for some people. So yeah, I think we do have to come up with something, because it's not the first person.
Yeah, I know.
Like, when's my
merch?
5-year gift coming? Is that a thing? Is that a thing in the podcast community that we have to give a gift about 5 years or 5 times? But either way. It was a pleasure to have you guys on the show for the first time. I know it was a long time coming, and I'm glad we were able to find the right movie for you guys to come on. And even if Grayson invited himself, it was a pleasure to have you on as well as Grayson. It's so much fun. If you want more from us, you can always follow us on all of our social media channels on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Box Office Bingers, our X and Letterboxd page at Box Office Binger, and our Threads and Instagram page at Box Office_Bingers. The fun doesn't stop here. It continues on our social media channels, so be sure to follow them. Any one of them. I'll settle for one, really. I'm not picky. One will do just fine. And if you don't do social media, then just continue listening to us wherever you listen to podcasts. That's fine. That's okay too, I guess. But but a lot of effort goes into those social media channels. I'm not saying you have to, but it's appreciated.
Okay, man. They get the idea. I think they get it.
You get it? Okay, all right. Next week is going to be a mystery because we don't know what we're doing next week, but we're going to find a movie to pick and we're going to review it. That's a guarantee.
Something will be there.
So we're definitely going to do that. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for listening. Just talk about movies. Really do apprient it. Grayson, Adam, thank you again for coming on. It was a lot of fun. You're welcome back anytime, together or separate. You guys can figure that out.
You just tell us what movies float your boat, and we got you.
Yes.
All right.
Come back next week for more movie fun. You're not going to regret it. For that, I've been your host, Matt Diaz.
Ernesto Santos. See ya.